y'all, my name is Tanny and I love to cook. It's a chilly day here down south in the US of A, so that means it's a perfect day to make a pot roast. Slow cooked pot roast, that is. But I've decided to jazz up my pot roast just a little bit with jerk seasoning. So that means the bell pepper, the onion, the garlic, the allspice, it's all in there and it's all delicious. Let's get to cooking. First up is to smash our garlic cloves. I'm using 2, but if you like more garlic, you can certainly add that. Next up, I cut the ends off of my garlic. And then I smash it again, and that's the reason I'm using a wide knife here before I chop it up. You could also use minced garlic that comes in a container. After that, we cut open and slice our bell pepper. I'm going to dig out the insides of it, the seeds and the membranes before I slice it up. The important part about cutting up a bell pepper is to make sure you have the outer edge on the bottom of your cutting board, because that is the dry side, so it will be more stable as you're slicing it and dicing it. Next up is the onion, and it's the same principle. The onion is round, so I'm going to cut it in a way so that I have a flat edge. I cringe every time I see someone cut a wobbly round onion, because it's a recipe for disaster. So just cut you a flat edge and make sure you put that on the bottom on your cutting board to stabilize it. Please click like on this video if you're enjoying it so far. Next up is to wash our pot roast. Yes, I wash my meat before I cook it. If you don't do it, I don't know what's going on. And I'm showing you this clip to show you, yes, I washed my hands several times during the cooking process. After I took the meat out of the sink, I had to gather my seasonings. So before touching the bottles, I washed my hands with soap and water. Next up, I have my fork so that I can pierce many holes into my meat as a way to tenderize it, as well as let my seasoning soak into the center of the meat during the marinade process, which I'll marinate this overnight. And I want the seasonings to get all the way through to every piece of meat. I'm going to put this meat in a large freezer bag so that it can marinate there instead of a bowl. Here I'm adding olive oil to my bag because I was being too lazy to dirty up a bowl to season it. So I'm just doing it in the bag. So I'm going to add Lowry seasoning salt. You want to make sure you add your seasonings to both sides, but we're going to massage it all the way through in just a couple of seconds. Thyme leaves is very commonly used in jerk seasoning. Garlic powder. Onion powder. Again, these are my member marked seasonings in the big containers from Sam's Club. I love them and they're a great price there. Next up is ground black pepper. It looks like a lot, but remember I have to spread this on both sides. This is the McCormick's Carribean Jerk Seasoning. So I'm using the powdered jerk seasoning instead of making my own sauce or buying a prepared sauce. And this bottle frustrates me because the whole side doesn't come out fast enough, so I have to open up the big side. I put in a few tablespoons, but again, this is seasoned according to my liking, so season according to your liking. But if the seasoning doesn't contain salt, you are pretty safe using 2 or 3 tablespoons of your seasoning to begin with, and then just massage it all in. Next up, I'm going to add some liquid smoke. I love this on my red meat. A little more extra virgin olive oil because I want the marinade to be fluid and be able to run through those tiny holes we cut into our chuck roast with our fork earlier. And this is how the seasoning looks on the meat. It looks highly seasoned because it is. It's going to be highly tasty as well. So now we have our onions and our bell pepper and garlic, and we're going to add this to the bottom of the crock pot. I had added my meat, but I took it out because I wanted to show you this step. I definitely add my vegetables at the bottom because I want the water that seeps from it to be at the bottom of the pot instead of the meat sticking. So I put the meat on top of it that I marinated overnight. And I put the red onions in with the marinated meat, and so that's what you see going in with it. I reserved a few vegetables to put on top, and this is how it looks when I put it all in the crock pot. Next up, I'm adding brown stock. You just want to add a cup or so. And now I'm adding habanero peppers from my garden last summer that I dried, I dehydrated. These things are potent and they're hot and spicy. I'm adding only one for a nice little kick, but not too much heat. If you want a lot of heat, you can cut that pepper in half and let all the seeds out. This is how it looks with my seasonings, as well as the pepper, as well as the stock in there. You don't want to put too much stock because the vegetables will release water and the meat will release its own juices, and we don't want to dilute it by putting too much juice in the beginning process. I am setting this to 8 hours on low. This is about a 2.5 to 3 pound piece of meat, and I will adjust the timing as it goes on. So I'm checking this after about 5 hours have gone by, and look how delicious that looks. All the seasonings, all the flavors. I'm gonna let it go about 1 more hour because I want this roast to be fork tender. So you can see that it is fork tender when I plated it onto a bed of rice. I added scallions because it's great for garnish, plus a nice fresh flavor. You can see red flakes in it, and those came from the dried Caribbean spice I used from the McCormick seasoning bottle. This was delicious, a nice way to jazz up your usual pot roast. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel and click like.